I think Cody's just better than you at everything. That sentence didn't come during a fight. There was no shouting, no sarcasm, not even raised voices. She said it while folding laundry, calm, careless, like she was commenting on the weather, a pale blue shirt in her hand, one of mine. And then that sentence. No reaction, not from her. I stared at the corner of the rug because I couldn't look at her face. I wanted to ask what she meant. I wanted to laugh it off like she probably expected me to, but my chest had already gone hollow like someone opened a trap door inside it, and everything dropped through. She hummed, actually hummed as if she hadn't just gutted me in the most casual way imaginable. I didn't answer her. I just picked up the socks on the floor. Mine. Always mine. And tried to remember if this was the first time she'd said something like that. I couldn't. Not because it hadn't happened, but because there had been too many comments lately. Too many little dicks. I asked, "Is that a joke?" She shrugged. Kind of. I mean, you know, I love you, but Cody just... He gets things done, like, fast. He's sharp. Funny. Funny. Funny like the way she laughed at her phone now, but turned the screen away. Funny like how she didn't notice I'd stopped eating dinner with her 3 weeks ago. Funny how every time I walked into a room lately, she'd go quiet for a second too long. I told myself not to take it seriously. She always joked like that, teased. That's how she was. But later that night I opened her laptop. I didn't mean to. It was on the kitchen table, glowing. Notifications on the corner. Cody's name. "Cody, you looked incredible today. I still can't believe we pulled it off." Pulled what off? My hands started shaking, but I kept scrolling. Just a few messages, no photos, nothing graphic, just familiarity, inside jokes, words you don't share with just coworkers. The kind of tone she used with me years ago, when I still made her laugh with nothing but a look. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I emailed myself every screenshot, every word, just in case. Just so I wouldn't gaslight myself later. I started sleeping in the guest room. She didn't ask why. The next week, she said she was going on a short overnight trip with her department. Teen bonding, she called it. She used to say work retreat. I guess bonding sounded more personal. When she came back, she had a tan line around her finger where her wedding ring used to be. And the worst part, she didn't even notice it was gone. The tan line haunted me. It wasn't just the absence of her ring. It was the absence of her noticing. Cassidy had always been particular about her appearance. The way she curled her hair in loose waves before meetings. The way she chose earrings to match her mood. The way she used to slide her ring up and down her finger when she was nervous or thoughtful. That tiny habit was gone now. Like everything else she used to do around me. I didn't mention it. I couldn't. Something in me was afraid of her answer. If she said she took it off for work, I'd know it was a lie. If she admitted anything else, I wasn't ready to hear it. So I did what I always do. I stayed quiet and observed like a moth clinging to a window, hoping it leads somewhere warm. That weekend, I checked her car. I know how that sounds. It makes me feel small just admitting it, but it wasn't dramatic. I didn't smash anything or rummage through her stuff. I just opened the passenger door and sat there. It smelled like her perfume and something faintly like cologne that didn't belong to me. In the center console, there was a receipt. 1 room, 1 night. The kind of boutique hotel couples use when they're trying not to be seen. The receipt was from the night of her team bonding. I took a photo of it and slid it back into place. I didn't even feel angry. Just erased, like she'd been rewriting our story while I was still clinging to the last paragraph. On Sunday, I tried to talk to her, We were in the kitchen making coffee, and I said carefully, "Do you think we've changed?" She didn't even look up from her mug. Of course, that's what relationships do. They evolve. I asked, "Do you ever think we evolved apart?" She finally looked up, but her face wasn't soft. It was annoyed. "Mariel, not everything has to be so deep. We're just in a phase. We're both busy, that's all." That's all. Like I hadn't been watching her slip further away every day for the last year. The next night, I followed her. She said she was going to a late dinner with a few people from the team. I kissed her on the cheek, smiled, and waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I got in my car and drove to that same boutique hotel. I didn't even know what I'd do when I got there. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just needed to know for sure. She was there. So was Cody. I watched them through the glass door of the lobby as they laughed and checked in together. Her hand brushed his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. And that laugh, the one I hadn't heard in weeks, echoed through the quiet parking lot like a slap. I didn't go inside. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I drove home in silence, parked in the driveway, and sat there until the sun started coming up. I made her coffee that morning just like always. She took it without a word and scrolled through her phone. That's when I realized she thought I'd never do anything. She thought I'd keep being the wallpaper, quiet, reliable, forgettable. She thought I'd just stay. But the thing about background noise is that once it stops, the silence can be deafening. And I had just decided her joke was over. The next few days were unbearable, and not because of anything dramatic. It was the nothingness that crushed me. She acted like everything was fine, like the truth I'd seen with my own eyes didn't exist because I hadn't spoken it aloud. Cassidy was always good at pretending, but now I was starting to see that she didn't just pretend for others, she pretended for herself too. She came home humming, tossing her bag on the chair like she was carefree, and sometimes even kissed my cheek and passing like a wife who loved her husband. But it all felt like a performance. She wasn't even trying to sell anymore. And I was the only one in the audience who hadn't left yet. I spent that week building something I didn't know I had in me. Resolve. It's funny how fast your mind changes when your heart finally gives up. I started documenting things, not because I planned some elaborate revenge, but because I didn't trust myself to remember the details later when she tried to gaslight me. I took photos, saved texts. I even recorded the audio one night when she stepped outside to take a call. I pressed record on my phone, left it on the windowsill and walked away. I didn't even listen to it right away. I just let it sit there like poison in a bottle. Thursday night she came home late again, hair done, lipstick perfect, but she said she'd been at the office, stuck in a meeting. I looked at her, really looked, and asked, "Was Cody there?" She blinked. "What?" I repeated it, same tone, no emotion. "Was Cody there tonight?" She laughed in a way that was supposed to be casual. "Don't be weird, Mariel. He's on my team." Of course he was. And then she just walked past me, opened a bottle of wine, and turned on the TV like it was just another evening. But that was the moment I realized she wasn't just lying to me. She was daring me to notice. The next morning, I took a personal day off work and drove to the hotel she'd been using. I walked in, pretending I had a reservation to check. The clerk asked for my ID, and I smiled and leaned in, lowering my voice just enough. "I think my wife might be meeting someone here. I'm not asking you to give me names. I'm just trying to find out if she's safe. She's been distant lately, and I have reason to worry. I didn't expect it to work, but it did." The clerk hesitated, then gave a short nod and said quietly, She's checked in here 3 times this month. Room 312 each time. That was all I needed. I walked back to my car, closed the door, and screamed. I screamed so hard I got lightheaded. I punched the steering wheel until my knuckles hurt. Then I sat there breathing heavy and realized I wasn't angry because she cheated. I was angry because I stayed long enough to be treated like a ghost. That night she told me she had to leave early the next morning for a design consultation in Pine Brook. I asked if it was just her. She hesitated for a fraction of a second and then said yes. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and told her to have fun. She smiled. That fake, overly sweet smile she used to give her boss when she wanted an early Friday off. That smile had never been for me. When she left the next morning, I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already had what I needed. I waited until nightfall. Then I pulled out the backup phone I bought a week earlier, a fresh number. I typed the message carefully, just a few words. No anger, no begging, just facts. You said Cody was better than me at everything. That includes lying. Enjoy your weekend. Don't come back. And I attached a single photo. Her and Cody holding hands in the hotel parking lot. His hand was on her lower back. She was laughing. I turned my phone off after hitting send, packed a bag, left the ring on the bathroom sink. And for the first time in years, I walked out of that house not wondering how she'd react, because I didn't care. But what happened next? Neither of us was ready for that. I spent that first night away in the cheapest roadside inn I could find, and somehow the scratchy sheets and humming air conditioner felt more honest than my entire home had in months. There was no message from Cassidy the whole night, no call, no frantic voicemail, not even a text to ask if I was okay. And that silence, oddly enough, was worse than a confrontation. It wasn't the reaction of someone caught. It was the response of someone who had already made peace with leaving. By morning, I was in a diner halfway across the county, sipping bitter coffee that tasted like burnt mud, but at least it was real. My phone buzzed once, and I didn't recognize the number. It was a local area code, but not one I had saved. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, curiosity got the better of me. I put my earbuds in and pressed play. It was Cassidy. Her voice was sharp and fast, like she'd been rehearsing what to say but couldn't stick the landing. Mariel, I saw your message. What the hell is this? You've been spying on me and sending me pictures. That's so disgusting. What are you even trying to do? Humiliate me? You don't even know the full story. You never ask. You just hide and guess and twist things in your head. If you wanted to talk like adults, we could have done that. But now I don't even know what you want from me. She hung up without saying goodbye. No apology, not even denial, just blame. I sat there shaking my head at the ceiling like maybe the cracked light fixture above me could explain how we got here. She wasn't sorry. Not because she didn't do it, but because I dared to acknowledge it. To her, the betrayal wasn't the affair, it was me refusing to be blind anymore. Later that day, I got a call from her sister, Amelia. Now that one caught me off guard. Amelia and I had always gotten along fine. Casual texts on holidays, the occasional birthday dinner, but nothing deep. So when I picked up and heard her soft voice, my stomach sank. "Mariel," she said gently, "what's going on? Cassid's freaking out." I didn't respond at first. I just stared at my reflection in the diner window, wondering what I even looked like to someone like Amelia. Like a fool, probably. She continued. She said, "You left. Sent her some message with a photo. I mean, I'm not taking sides, she sounded off, really off. She kept saying something about you ruining her job. That confused me." Her job. I asked Amelia what she meant, and there was this pause, a long one. And then she said Cassidy's been seeing someone from her firm. Cody, I guess. I thought you knew. I figured you two were, well, I don't know. She's been pretty open about it. Said things were complicated, but I didn't think you'd actually split up. I dropped my fork. I hadn't even noticed I was holding it. She's been open about it. I repeated, my voice low and tight. Amelia's tone shifted. I didn't mean that like she was bragging or anything. Just, she made it sound like you guys were basically done and she was trying to move on. That was it. That was the last piece. Cassidy had already rewritten our story for everyone else. In her version, I was the distant, checked-out husband. She was the woman bravely moving forward. It was such a clean little narrative, so convenient. No one would question the coworker. No one would wonder when the timelines overlapped because in her mind the end had already been decided. She just forgot to tell me. But I wasn't interested in setting the record straight. Not yet. Instead, I drove back to town, not to our house, but to a storage unit I'd rented that week, just in case. I opened the metal door and stared at the boxes I'd packed in silence. Documents, clothes, my father's tools, the backup drives with every photo from our marriage. Then I took out my laptop, connected to Wi-Fi, and opened the anonymous email I had created a few nights earlier. Inside was a single draft. No attachments, no ranting. Just one line ready to send to Cassid's firm's HR department. It may concern you that your team lead, Cassidy Monroe, has been engaging in an inappropriate relationship with her direct subordinate. I am willing to provide proof if necessary. I didn't press send. Not yet. Because part of me still wanted her to say something real, but another part was already walking away for good. I didn't press send that night. I stared at that email for hours, just hovering over it, my thumb tingling like it knew that once it happened, there was no going back. Reporting her to HR wouldn't fix what had already been broken, but it would shatter the version of herself she had carefully curated, the career woman with her life in order, the charismatic team lead, the one who kept it all together. I knew Cassidy. She would survive heartbreak. She would walk through losing me with a shrug. But public exposure, professional consequences, that would sting in a way I never could. But something held me back. Maybe it was the memory of our dog who died 3 years ago and how she cried in the car and held my hand the whole ride to the vet. Maybe it was the photo on my phone of us from a vacation in Maine. She was smiling, genuinely smiling, and I couldn't quite believe the woman in that picture would be capable of treating me like a doormat. Or maybe I was still too much of a coward, too used to disappearing into the background to finally make noise. The next morning, my phone blew up. 8 missed calls, 2 voicemails, 3 texts from Cassidy, 1 from her boss. Yes, her actual boss. The last one caught me so off guard I had to read it twice. It was a short message. Mariel, if this is about Cassidy's situation with Cody, please understand that we're handling it internally. You don't need to escalate things further. That was the first time it became real to me. I hadn't sent the email. Someone else had, but how? Who? That's when I realized Amelia. She had asked too many pointed questions during our last call. She'd known more than she let on. And I didn't send her anything, but I had told her enough. Maybe she went looking for answers. Maybe she put 2 and 2 together. Or maybe she was just tired of watching her sister manipulate people. Either way, someone had beaten me to the punch. I tried calling Amelia, but she didn't answer. Instead, I got a single text. You didn't deserve that, Mariel. And she doesn't deserve to walk away clean. A strange wave came over me. Not quite relief, not quite fear. Just a stillness. like I was standing in the center of the storm while the wind whipped through everyone else's lives. Now, I hadn't even made a move, and still the floor was cracking beneath her. I drove past our house that afternoon. I didn't go inside. I just parked across the street and watched. The front door opened about 20 minutes later. Cassidy came out in a rush, phone to her ear, heels clicking hard on the walkway. She was pacing, crying, the kind of frantic meltdown I had never seen from her. Not even at funerals, not even when we lost her job 2 years ago and had to eat ramen for a month. This was a woman unraveling. She didn't notice me, but I saw her fully. That night, she texted me a wall of messages, the kind people usually send when they're drowning. They swung wildly between rage, guilt, denial, and a strange kind of pleading that stopped short of an apology. You made it seem like I was some monster. You never tried to understand how I felt. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. Okay, Cody meant something, but not everything. I never wanted to lose you like this. Can we talk? Please, Mariel. Please. I didn't respond. The next day, I got a package, hand-delivered. No note, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting on the label. Inside was a small wooden box, the same one we'd kept our wedding mementos in. The dried flower from her bouquet, the tie clip I wore, a folded napkin from our first date with her lipstick mark still faintly visible. At the bottom, beneath everything else, was her wedding ring. No envelope, no letter, just the ring placed like a full stop at the end of a sentence neither of us knew how to write. I stared at it for a long time, but I didn't cry. There was nothing left in me to spill out. She'd already emptied me long before she packed this box. What shocked me most wasn't that she sent it. It was that it didn't hurt. Not anymore. Because I was done being the invisible man, and Cassidy was finally starting to see the cost of her little joke.
In the week that followed, something strange happened. It wasn't explosive. There weren't cops at the door, or lawsuits, or screaming voicemails. No one slashed tires. There were no dramatic Facebook posts. Instead, what unfolded was slower, quieter, and somehow even more brutal than anything I could have anticipated. Cassid's carefully balanced life began to tilt, and not because I'd knocked it over, but because she built it on fiction, and fiction eventually collapses under its own weight. Amelia reached out again a few days later, this time in person. She met me at a coffee shop 2 towns over, away from the gossip circles. When she walked in, she looked tense, like someone who'd been holding on to a secret too long. She ordered tea and didn't say anything for a while. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "You should know they suspended her." I blinked. Suspended? Yeah. Apparently she denied everything at first, said it was a smear campaign. But then Cody confessed. He said it wasn't just an affair. It had been going on for over 6 months, and she helped him get promoted last quarter. The words sat in the air between us like rot. I couldn't even process them all at once. 6 months helped him get promoted. I knew it was bad, but I hadn't imagined she'd pulled rank to push him forward. That wasn't just cheating. That was manipulation, both emotional and professional. "She's on administrative leave," Amelia added. "It's probably going to be formal now. HR is investigating." I just nodded, hands wrapped around a mug I hadn't touched, and Cody resigned quietly. Of course he did. That's what men like Cody do. They drop the match and vanish before the smoke settles. Amelia looked at me, then really looked at me and said something I didn't expect. "You know, I always thought she'd grow out of it. That thing she does, the way she rewrites reality to suit herself. But this time, I think she really believes she could juggle it all. The marriage, the affair, the image.
like she thought if she just smiled enough it would all work out. There was something in Amelia's tone that wasn't bitterness. It was disappointment, not for me, but for her sister. "She keeps saying you humiliated her," Amelia went on. "But I think deep down she knows you were the one holding everything together. Quietly, invisibly. She just got used to you doing it." I swallowed hard and forced a small laugh. Yeah, well, that's kind of my thing, right? Holding things while they fall apart. But it didn't feel like that anymore. For once, I wasn't the one crumbling. Cassidy tried to reach out again the following weekend. This time she emailed me, not from her usual account, but from a new one, personal, private. The subject line was a single word: truth. The email itself was long, pages worth of justification disguised as vulnerability. She admitted she'd crossed lines, but insisted it wasn't as calculated as it looks. She claimed she felt invisible at home, that I had become disconnected, that she was trying to feel alive again. Every line felt like a shovel digging the same hole deeper. And near the end, buried between excuses and emotional spin, was the part that made me sit back in my chair. "You know what scares me? It wasn't just the affair. It's that when you left, I didn't know how to function because you were the gravity. And I never realized how much of my life was orbiting around you." It was the closest she'd ever come to admitting that she took me for granted. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. Because by then, I had started rebuilding. I found a small studio apartment above an antique shop in a nearby town. Nothing special. Slanted ceilings, creaky floorboards, a water heater that rattled like it's coughing every time I take a shower. But it was mine. I bought my own plates. I picked out curtains. I even got a little plant, a ridiculously looking cactus I named Franklin. For the first time in years, I had space that wasn't shadowed by someone else's expectations. And with that space came something unfamiliar. Clarity. Cassidy didn't break me. She broke the illusion I had wrapped myself in. The idea that being silent and supportive and endlessly patient would keep a marriage alive. That loving someone hard enough could make them stay. No, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes love isn't loud or violent when it dies. Sometimes it just fades, and the only sound left is the moment you finally decide to stop chasing someone who ran the moment they thought you wouldn't follow. I didn't answer her email. I didn't reply with anger or forgiveness or even silence. I just left it sitting there marked as read like a ghost that wouldn't be acknowledged. It wasn't about punishment. I simply had nothing left to say. Words had already failed between us, been warped and weaponized, stretched until they didn't mean anything anymore. The truth was, I'd already mourned the loss of our marriage before I even left the house. By the time Cassidy started reaching out, she was grieving someone I no longer was. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call, same number. Then a text. "Mariel, please, I'm at your apartment. I'm not leaving until we talk." I felt my whole body go rigid. She was here at my place, my little sanctuary above the antique shop. I hadn't given her the address. She must have gotten it from Amelia. Or maybe she followed me one day without me noticing. Either way, the thought of her standing in the hallway outside my door made my chest tighten. Not from fear, from the weight of everything. I was finally ready to put down. I opened the door slowly. She was standing there, hair tied back, no makeup, eyes red like she hadn't slept. In her hands, a folded envelope. The kind you see in movies, thick paper sealed with something that looked like gold foil. She didn't say hi. She just looked at me for a long moment and said, "I need you to read this, but not right now. I know I don't deserve that, but it's the only honest thing I've written in a long time." I didn't take it. Instead, I stepped aside and said, "You've got 5 minutes. No speeches, no guilt. Just say what you came to say." She stepped in slowly, like she wasn't sure the floor wouldn't collapse beneath her. I watched her scan the apartment, the lone chair, the beat-up coffee table, the cactus in the window, and something in her face shifted, a flicker of pain, maybe a regret. I couldn't tell anymore. "I don't know how to be here," she said finally. "In this place where you exist without me." I didn't reply. She swallowed hard. "They fired me. Officially. HR said they couldn't risk keeping me on after what happened. Cody's gone. He moved to Oregon or something. He won't answer my calls. He deleted his social media. I don't even think he was ever really invested in me. Not beyond whatever it was we were doing. Still, I said nothing. She looked at the envelope in her hand like it weighed 50 pounds. "I wrote everything in here. The real story. How it started. Why. All the things I never said out loud. You can burn it if you want. I needed to leave something behind that wasn't a lie." And for the first time, I saw her. Truly saw her. Not as my wife. Not as the person who cheated, but as someone standing in the ruins of their own design, unsure where to step next. She set the envelope on the table beside the cactus. "I'm not here to beg or to make this about me. I just wanted you to know that I finally see it. All of it. What you did for me. How invisible you had to become so I could shine. And how cruel that was." Her voice cracked then, just a little. "I know I joked that Cody was better than you at everything, but he wasn't. He never was. He couldn't have done what you did. Hold a life together quietly while being erased in the process." And with that, she turned and left. I didn't follow her. I stood there in the silence she left behind, staring at the envelope like it might explode. Hours passed before I finally opened it. Inside were 12 handwritten pages where she admitted things I never thought I'd hear from her, not because they were shocking, but because they were finally honest. She talked about the slow way her admiration for me turned into expectation, and how once I became dependable, she stopped seeing me as a person and more like a safety net. She wrote about Cody, about how he made her feel new, seen, alive, but how that feeling faded quickly and how terrifying it was to realize she had burned everything for someone who didn't even stay to watch it fall. She ended it with this: "You didn't lose me, Mariel. I lost you, piece by piece. Every time I looked through you, every time I chose silence, every time I told myself I deserved more when I already had someone who gave everything. I didn't cry, but I didn't sleep either. I sat in that chair all night, reading the last page over and over, trying to decide whether forgiveness meant going back or just letting go. Morning came, and with it the sound of life returning outside my window. Shop owners sweeping sidewalks, birds arguing on the roof, a child laughing far off down the street. It all sounded so normal, and maybe that's what I needed. Not an ending, just a beginning that wasn't wrapped in her shadow. I folded the letter back into the envelope, placed it in the drawer, and for the first time in months made coffee for one, not out of habit, but because I wanted to. The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. No more surprise visits, no more messages filled with confusion or guilt. Just a kind of stillness that let me breathe again. I kept the letter, not because I wanted to reread it, but because it reminded me of a boundary I'd finally learned to protect. Her words weren't a doorway back in. They were a marker of where it all ended. A confession without an invitation. And somewhere in that silence, something shifted in me. I stopped waking up with that tightness in my chest. I started walking in the mornings, Nothing dramatic, just down the street and back, nodding to people I never noticed before. I fixed up the apartment, not because I needed to, but because it finally felt like mine. I hung shelves. I bought a rug.
Franklin the cactus grew a new arm. Life didn't leap forward. It crept, but it crept in the right direction. One evening, maybe a month after she left the letter, I saw Amelia again. I hadn't planned it. I was browsing used books at the corner shop when she walked in, surprised to see me. She smiled, warm but cautious. I offered to buy her coffee, and to my surprise, she agreed. We talked for hours, about Cassidy, about family, about how hard it is to admit when we're not okay. Amelia wasn't just her sister anymore. She was someone who had been watching all of this unfold from a strange vantage point. Someone who knew both of us but owed allegiance to neither. She admitted she'd been the one to send the anonymous tip to Cassid's firm. Not out of revenge, she said, but because someone had to stop pretending it was fine. Before she left, she put a hand on my shoulder and said, "You didn't deserve any of that, but I think you're finally starting to live like you believe it." That night, I sat on the balcony of my tiny apartment drinking lukewarm tea, and it hit me. She was right. I had been walking through years of a life built on compromise, afraid that standing up for myself would make me the villain. But it hadn't. It had set me free. Cassidy reached out one last time. It was a short message. No drama, no manipulation. "I hope you're okay. I hope someday you find someone who sees you the way I should have." I didn't reply, but I did smile because I already had. In time, I met someone. Not a whirlwind romance, not a rebound. Just a quiet, slow, honest connection with a woman named June. She worked at a second-hand furniture shop down the street. We bumped into each other enough times that it started feeling deliberate. She didn't know my past. She didn't care about it either. She only cared about who I was becoming. She laughed at my dumb jokes. She asked questions and actually waited for the answers. She liked my tea, even though it was terrible. And the first time she asked me about the cactus on my windowsill, I told her his name like it was the most normal thing in the world. She didn't even flinch. It wasn't about finding someone to replace what I lost. It was about finding peace where pain used to live. And that joke Cassidy made all those months ago about Cody being better than me at everything, it was the best thing she could have said because it finally gave me permission to stop trying to prove myself to someone who never really saw me. Now, I know better, and I'm done being invisible.